Hi guys, I'm back with part 2 of my paranormal videos, and I'm just going to get it out of the way. If you talk about my hair or my eyebrows, you're a hater, because today is not the day. But yeah, today is going to be part 2 of my paranormal stuff. I have notes here so that I don't forget. Most of these aren't in chronological order because I don't necessarily know when some of them happened. I did the best that I could, so they're like roughly, but a couple of things might have like happened slightly out of order, but I don't think it's actually going to matter to this video. So let's just get into it. Also, I have to manually hit record because my little remote, I still haven't gotten a new battery for it, so I'm on top of things. Okay, so I believe we left off in the last video at the Victorian house. Now, I have to say that things happen to me very sporadically, and I think a lot of times I write things off as being nothing because I am naturally skeptical. Despite the things that I've experienced myself, I am a skeptic. So I think when just kind of little strange things happen, I didn't really pay much attention to them, and these are just the ones that like I couldn't deny were strange. So one interesting thing that happened, and I've lived in this house for coming up on 8 years. It'll be 8 years in June, and it's a very comfortable house. It's very safe feeling. I personally don't feel scared of anything here, paranormally speaking, if that makes sense. So there hasn't been anything like horrifying, but there have been some scary things. The first thing I'm going to talk about, which I do not believe was the first thing that necessarily happened here, but it's the first thing that I can like for sure remember, and I wasn't the only person who experienced it, was my friend and I were downstairs and we heard running upstairs, like, but it sounded like human feet, not like an animal. And even if it had been an animal sound, at the time I believe I had 2 cats. I think I just had Klaus and Sage at that point, but at most 3 cats. And either way, at that time I remember like checking, and all animals were downstairs sleeping, like clearly had not been upstairs running, like were deep asleep. But it sounded like something upstairs, and came up here to look, and there was obviously nothing. So that happened, and then shortly after, something that I find a little bit more creepy happened. So okay, so after we heard the running, I actually messaged the same person because I think it was like just a couple of days later, I came upstairs, which is where all of my like witchy kind of stuff is, and there's a full-length mirror that I got from the Fancy World of Walmart. And I, of course, got it, brought it home, immediately cleaned it, and then put it up. I like sealed it and did all of my witchy stuff to it, so it had been thoroughly cleaned. After hearing that running, I came upstairs, and on the, if you're looking at the mirror, the left side of the mirror, kind of like halfway up, which I think it's like a 6-foot mirror or something like that, there was a handprint, but it was like a child's handprint. Like the whole handprint fit in my palm, and I don't have especially big hands. They might look big on camera, but I promise actually I have pretty small hands. So and what was weird is like it looked like the hand had gone like this, like there looked like there were claw marks. And I don't have kids. I don't really know a lot of people that have especially small kids, so I don't know. I got cut off, but yeah, I don't know who it could have been. At the time, probably the youngest kid I knew was 5, I would say, and she hadn't been here for like 2 or 3 weeks since like before that happened. And I come up here regularly. I use this mirror pretty much every single day, and it was very, very, very noticeable with the lighting here. So there's no way I wouldn't have noticed it in 3 weeks. And not only that, the handprint was significantly smaller. I mean, she was a 5-year-old. This, again, a hand that could entirely, fingers and all, fit in the palm of my hand. So I have no idea what that was about, but it definitely was creepy. I ended up like rewashing the mirror, resealing the mirror, doing all of that, because after the running, which sounded at the time, I had said it sounded like a little kid like running upstairs, and then the handprint happened, so I resealed and redid all of that, and nothing regarding like children has happened since then, and that was a couple of years ago. So I seem to have fixed that one. But there also have been many instances of someone humming, mostly a woman, but there definitely have been times where it sounds a little bit more masculine. And this isn't like, oh, the fan's running and I think I hear humming. This is like dead silence, like sitting there, and it sounds like And it's always just like a few seconds. It's not people walking by outside. It's nothing like that. It's not a TV on. I'm typically like, again, I'm not the only person who has experienced this, but I have experienced it more than anybody else has. I'm typically alone, and it's almost always when the house is silent, because I tend to lay there with like everything off and just like play on my phone or read or whatever. And there have been times where my animals react to it and they tend to look up the stairs, which nobody should be upstairs. So that's happened. The handprint was one of the more creepy things to me, and then we're about to get into the things that I actually found. I'm probably not editing these because I don't really feel like it. As I was saying before, I keep getting phone calls, like spam calls. That's what's, I guess I could put on airplane mode, but I have trauma. I don't like doing that. Anyway, I would say what's coming up are things that are way more creepy and that bothered me more than the other stuff did. The handprint was creepy. The running at the time was weird, but it didn't really scare me or like bother me. The humming never really bothered me. I was just like, strange. But we're getting into the time around when I got my mom's ashes and things started happening. Now, I want to preface this by saying I don't believe it was my mom. I just don't believe it was my mom. I think that a lot of negative emotions at that time throughout the family caused some scary things to happen, like manifested scary things. So this was not long after my mom died. I was asleep in bed. I didn't have Nix yet, so at the time I had three cats. I believe I had Toby, Klaus, and Sage. And I was asleep, and my bedroom door burst open, like violently burst open, and scared me. I mean, just terrified me. I'm a very light sleeper, so it like hardcore startled me awake. And I, of course, sit up, my heart's racing, and I look at the door and I'm expecting to see a cat or something, but there's nothing there. Nothing. And I get up, go downstairs. Nobody's here, of course. The cats were all asleep downstairs. Toby was asleep on the couch. I think Sage was asleep in the chair, and then Klaus was sleeping actually on the back of the couch. So they were all down there asleep. Again, didn't have Nix at this time. I've only had her for a couple of years. Coming up on a couple of years, actually. So I don't know what that was. It really scared me, though. It's probably the most scary thing that I've experienced personally in this house, at least. So yeah. The next thing that I remember happening is after my mom had passed away, we got her ashes. My brother brought them to me so that I could put them in her urn, and I did. I put them in her urn, and I put the urn on a shelf, and I had put like a necklace around it earlier in the day, and then I was like, oh, I have her wedding rings. So I put her wedding rings on that necklace and put that back on the urn. I went and sat down. Earlier in the day, I had propped up a painting that I had done for her beside the urn, but it was like tucked back behind where it couldn't just fall. I go and sit on a chair in the living room, and within 5 minutes, that painting flies like this, like straight off the shelf, and falls face down. Or no, it falls face up, sorry. And I found that so weird because it was a painting. It's actually on my wall up there now, but it's a resined painting. So in my mind, first of all, it wouldn't just fly straight off. It would just like topple down and probably land face down because the face of the painting is super heavy now because of the resin on it. But it didn't. That's not what happened at all. Sorry, the lighting's changing. The sun's like going in and out behind the clouds. But that one really startled me because, again, there was nothing that could have caused that. Nothing ran past the shelf. Still at that time, I just had, I think, 3 cats, and it was just me here, and it was nighttime. So I don't know what caused that. I went and picked the painting up and put it back where it was, and it never ever fell again. And I said out loud when it happened that I don't know who you are. You're not going to make me think you're my mom. I know my mom wouldn't want to scare me like that, and I don't appreciate that because a lot of other things have been happening outside of my home regarding kind of creepy stuff. But yeah, I don't know what it was. At this time is when my dad was finding like red thumbtacks all over his house. Like we had used red thumbtacks to kind of create a curtain basically between the kitchen and the living room because my mom was in a hospital bed in the living room. Sorry, my leg is here because it hurts to sit on something. But we had used like red thumbtacks to tack up a sheet just to separate that, to make it a little bit darker for her in the living room, so the light wouldn't like keep her awake at nighttime. And he, after she died, started finding, like, we used 2, I think. He started finding numerous red thumbtacks just all over his house in really weird places, and we've not been able to like explain that. I actually went over there and did like a smoke cleansing. I used, I believe, rosemary, and everything stopped after I did that, so that's good. But that all happened right around the same time, and I think, I don't know, it depends on what you believe. I'm not going to get into all that, but I knew it wasn't my mom either way. Those were kind of like the hardest, I feel like, to deal with, because everything that had been going on. And I kind of mentioned there was just a lot of negativity in my family at that time, like a lot of just not good things happening. And I don't know if it was just like manifested, like, I don't really know. I don't know. I don't fully understand all of that stuff, honestly. I'm still pretty new to learning about all of it, so I just know that it happened a lot right out, like within, I'd say, the first year that she died, and then it kind of like trickled off after that. So that's everything tied to her passing, except one thing I'm going to mention at the very end. So the next kind of thing that I remember is we went to a cemetery near where I live with my nephew and his sister, and when there's like a normal like newer part of the cemetery, and then there's a hill where it's like really old, like 1800s. Once again, anyway, that cemetery goes back to like late 1700s, I believe. So we're walking, exploring, like just kind of, you know, wandering around the older part of the cemetery, which is again up on a really tall hill, and there's woods on this side of it as you're walking up to your right. And we heard something moving, and it seemed like it was following us. And so we're all like, you know, of course we're thinking like a squirrel or a pet, like our house is somewhere back behind there, so we're thinking maybe like a dog, but we never saw anything. We never saw it. And what was really strange was we kind of realized that like when we would start walking, it would start walking, and then when we stopped, it would stop. And this is 4 people who experienced that sound. And at the time, I think we all just kind of wrote it off as like clearly some kind of animal, but it sounded so close. It sounded like we should have been able to see whatever it was. And yet we saw no leaves. I guess it's important to say there were leaves on the ground, so it was like the crunching of leaves, and very close by there were leaves on the ground, and it sounded like whatever it was like right beside us. And I said there were woods, but it wasn't like thick woods, like you could see through them. It wasn't anything crazy, and we saw nothing. And again, that was 4 people looking into these trees at various times, angles, places, and none of us saw anything. And we all just wrote it off and thought, whatever, we're just crazy. But then like probably a year or so later, my cousin called. Actually, I think it was like 2 years later, my cousin called me, and she's like, we were just at the cemetery, like, have you ever experienced anything there? Because we just were exploring the older part of it, and we felt like something was following us in the woods. And I'm like, I swear, like my heart kind of like skipped a beat, because I'm like, oh my god, like yeah, we literally. And I told her then what we experienced. Nobody knew. I didn't think much of it when it happened, so nobody knew. And when I told her, she was kind of like caught off guard. And Leah, if you watch these videos, I don't know if you do or not, comment below what exactly happened with you guys, because I don't 100% remember. I just remember it was very similar to what we had experienced when we were there before. Oh, and now Nikki is texting me. But yeah, again, I'm a skeptic, so I understand the people who are going to be inclined to be like, it was an animal, maybe, but it was just strange that years apart we had experienced the same exact thing, and nobody. So okay, it was 4 people, including me, when it happened that time, and then the next time I believe it was at least 4 people. I think it was 4 of my cousins. So you're telling me 8 people and nobody saw anything either of those times? Like, that doesn't seem strange to me, but whatever. You believe what you believe. I'm just telling you what happened. And last thing I want to talk about is a dream that I had in around 2016, and my mom died in 2019. She was diagnosed with cancer in 2017. I have a journal entry, dated and everything, for when I dreamed this, that I dreamt that my mom was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and she died, and then that happened. And I know you could say like, well, that time I got a legitimate call, but I don't remember exactly what I was saying in the last clip. I was talking about my mom in that dream. But yeah, she was diagnosed in 2017 and died in 2019. My dream was like 2016. And that really like shook me, because I know you can say like, oh, it's just coincidence, like people get cancer, things happen, but there were too many things about the dream that like actually happened for me to write it off, and that one breaks my heart, because obviously I didn't tell her when I had it, because I was just like, oh, it's just a bad dream. But yeah, I have dreams like that quite a bit, unfortunately. Things happen in the dream and then happen in real life, and it's not as simple as I'm making it sound, but it's because I don't really want to get into the details of all of it, because I just don't, because it makes me feel a little crazy. So anyway, guys, that's it. Those are the things that I can remember experiencing, and if I remember anything else, I will make another video, but I feel like that's probably the majority of like the bigger things that have happened. And so yeah, if you watched this far, like the video, dislike the video, leave a comment. You can just comment a chicken emoji if you want to. But I'm gonna go because I have things that I have to do today. And again, Nikki's texting me, so I don't want her to think that I'm ignoring her. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you have a good day. I hope you're staying warm in this crazy, gross, icy weather. And I'll see you soon. Bye.